investigating things and looking them up and pouring through old documents and stuff like that. And this is, any research projects, it's always like a work in progress. So I had to stop somewhere, and actually I stopped last night late. Okay, we gotta save this to the little zip drive and get that ready to go. So I'm sure there's things I've left out, I'm sure there's things that are wrong. And if you see anything like that, just by all means, like raise your hand and be like, well, actually, that's not right at all. That's fine. Feel free to correct me. I'd like to know if it's wrong or if I've got something in a wrong location or anything like that. Or you can tell me afterwards if you don't want to do that in front of everybody. Either way, it's fine. All right. So I just kind of went back to like the very beginning of the history of the Hudson Valley. And from 1609 to 1703, there's no records of any schools of any sort. The Dutch farmers and fur traders were just occupying the area that would become Orange County. And I don't know if they were meeting or like in people's houses or had like schools like that, but there's no records of them. And then we go back to the way we owned a patent in 1703. And the Goshen area is granted to 12 different patentees. And the reason that's important is from the start, they did lay out like a space for schools because they wanted settlers to come up from Jamaica, Long Island, and they wanted to like make it seem like they had all of the makings of a town kind of like set up. So they had like a school plot and they had a church plot when they kind of laid all of that out. It wasn't here yet, but they put it on the map, so it was going to be there. One of the oldest schoolhouses we have in Orange County, as far as we know, is the Old Stone Schoolhouse. This later becomes District 9. And this one's over on 17A. Most of you, I'm sure, driven by it a million times. Yes. We know that in 1723, a local landowner deeded 20 acres to the community for school purposes, but I don't know if that's exactly when it was built. Or whether there was a stone structure or a wood structure there first, we're not really sure. It was kind of historically referred to as the boarding quarry school because apparently that's where they got most of the stones, I guess, from the boarding quarry nearby. And Mr. Baird, if I got this wrong, just yell at me. Okay?
That sounds right.
Okay. And we do know that it shows up in an advertisement in 1792 looking for a teacher for the school. So we know it was definitely in existence by at least then. And it was used continuously all the way until 1938. So it's one of the longest continuously run schools. Here's a picture I lifted off the internet of the inside of it. Right? We've got the little potbelly stove and the desks. Legend has it that during the Revolutionary War, George Washington was riding by on a trip from his, like nearby Florida. And he supposedly stopped briefly at the school to talk to the children. And it goes along with like, he slept here and everywhere else during the Revolutionary War. Who knows if that's actually true or not, but that's the legend. William Henry Seward, later United States Secretary of State, walked 3 miles to and from that school because it was, it's kind of heading towards Florida. So he went to school there, and it's now on the National Register of Historic Places. And this is an article from, about when it closed down, and you see our sketchy little photo there, but yeah, the 200-year-old school in Goshen votes to close. That happens in 1938. And you're going to find that with pretty much all of the one-room schoolhouses that were still in existence into the 30s, they pretty much all closed down between 1937, 38, 39, around that time when they consolidated into Goshen School District. I have these like roughly in chronological order, but they all overlap obviously. But this is Farmers Hall Academy, which is now our town hall here. It was opened in 1773 as a private school, and it was on the original plot. So when like the patentees kind of made their map, they made a like spot for a school, and this is what they put on that location. It was originally supposedly just one story, and then it was expanded to be 2 rooms and then 2 stories. And in 1781, Noah Webster becomes principal. I guess he graduated from Yale with a law degree, but then he gets here to Goshen. He doesn't have a lot of money, and he took a job as a principal because it was quicker than finding a job as a lawyer. I find astounding since there's a million lawyers in Goshen. All right. Circa 1801, the two-room brick structure replaced an older, presumably wood structure. And in 1810s, William Henry Seward from Florida is educated at Farmers Hall. So we know he went to the one-room schoolhouse and then he kind of went here later on. He goes on to be New York State Senator, Governor of New York, runs for president against Abraham Lincoln, doesn't win obviously. And Lincoln appoints him Secretary of State, and we know that he's responsible for negotiating the purchase of Alaska, Seward's icebox. Okay. So more about Farmers Hall Academy. So 1812, the Goshen School District formed after the passing of the Common School Act by New York State. Basically, New York State comes down in 1812 and says, like, we need all towns to kind of divvy up their sections into districts, and each district really needs to have a school, and it needs to be relatively walkable for the kids that live there. So at that point, they kind of divide that all up. The trustees of Farmers Hall are appointed as the first school board because it was already there. They just kind of lifted them and made them the first school board members. In 1820, the Female Academy is established as part of Farmers Hall with William McEwen as first principal. I couldn't find much more about this other than, like, sometimes on maps it seems to drift around. I saw the school maybe even located closer to where the Presbyterian Church is today, like that portion of the school, but.
It was directly across from Donovan's.
Thank you. Okay, so it was on the property of the Goshen Presbyterian. Okay. Thank you. Like I said, like some of these things, I would find a little blip about them, or they show up on one map and then they're just gone again, and there's no more information about them. And then the Common School District Act expires in 1840, and they kind of have to regroup, but the Goshen School District basically purchases Farmers Hall at that point so it can continue using its building. And the weather vane is supposed to be down in Museum Village, the little pen. All right, so then getting into like the one-room schoolhouses themselves, and there's a lot of them. This is Gates Schoolhouse. This is Goshen District 1. And it does show up on the 1850 map. You can see it over there. Sometimes that also seems to migrate across the street, and I'm not really sure why that is on different maps unless there was multiple structures. I went looking for this one. I don't know how many times it doesn't appear to be there today. There's a couple more pictures of it. There's an 1885 picture, and we have what the school kids look so cheery in this photo. Very excited to be at school. I think the only person smiling is the teacher. And like the schools were really obviously like the like hub of that little community, that hamlet or whatever. They would have Christmas plays, they would have holiday type things. Arbor Day was a big thing, it seems like, in a lot of the newspaper articles. They would always get press for singing different songs. They would list who the soloists were. It was very much like the cultural hub of those little communities. I don't know where Goshen School District 2 was. It kind of like shows up in some of the records. It says at one point in 1881 it merges with 8, and then that's really the last we hear of it. So I'm not really sure where it originally was located. I can look on the maps and see where the district was, but I can't find exactly where the school was or what it was called specifically. District 8 is presumably in the village where the Main Street yellow brick building is today. So I believe there was an older school on that site, and, until they built the Main Street building. Okay. Here's another one. You're just going to see lots of question marks. This is Goshen District 3. Not sure where this one really is either, because then there's a newspaper article where it says in 1888 it merges with 2 and 8. So these all kind of merged well before centralization, so it's kind of hard to tell where they originally were. Derlinville eventually becomes district number 3, but I almost think they just reused the number. But it isn't on the 1851 or 59 map, and we know it was in use when Goshen centralized in 1937. So the district likely just reused the number 3. They'd gotten rid of it in the 1880s, and then they were like, let's use that number again. There is a school on the 1851 map past Pumpkin Swamp Road, but I don't think that's number 3 because first of all, that would be too far down. It's about where the Alamo is today, and that's technically Warwick School District. So. There's Derlinville Schoolhouse. So this becomes District Number 3. I just put a B up there, 'cause I don't know. This one was built around 1883, and it was all the way in use right up until centralization happens. Yeah, it had a second life as a tavern. You can see there on the right. It's still there today. It's a residence now. It still has a little sign up in the top that says Goshen, like that little plaque at the very top says Goshen District 3 when you drive by. And Derlinville votes to join Goshen School District in May 19th, 1937. And that's just the legal notice of the sale of the lot, stuff going there. So it kind of hung around for about 10 years and then they sold the lot. This one's also a little bit of a mystery. It's the Maple Avenue Schoolhouse. It shows up on the 1851 map, so it was already there by then. We know it was in use until 1937, but there's also no current building anywhere near there. Driven up and down many times looking to see if there's any remnants of it, couldn't find it. Let's see what we got there. This is just, it's kind of a nice list of pupils' names. And I think in this case they're donating to the Battleship Fund. This was World War I, of course, in 1916. So I would like it when we have a list of students and we recognize some of those last names. All right, this is East Division Schoolhouse. I don't know why it's called East Division. There's no West Division or North Division or any of that. It's, I don't know why they didn't just call it the Circle or Craigsville School, because it is on Craigsville. It doesn't show up on the 1851 or 1859 maps, but it does show up on the 1875, so presumably it was built somewhere in there. It's still there today. It's right along the road. It looks just like that on the right.
My grandmother went to that school.
Did she?
Yep.
You know, and see, you told me nobody's old enough to have relatives that went to. I was like, no.
I didn't
was
mean
like,
that.
there's definitely people like parents and grandparents who went to these schools.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the East Division Schoolhouse. There's some articles. I have to laugh at like some of the things that made the news, like in the 1895 one, the flock of wild geese, 14 in number, were seen in London. So I left that part in there because it was funny, but you know, it talks about a temperance lecture being held at the schoolhouse. Like who's reporting to the newspaper on these things? I don't know. Yeah, and you can see it didn't have like a huge population. They had like 9 pupils in 1940. Obviously they decided to close it, and a farmer buys the abandoned schoolhouse. And it has been maintained. It looks pretty good today. Okay. There's the Reservoir Schoolhouse. This is Goshen District Number 6. It's a brick building, and you can always pick it out in pictures because it has that little like scalloped edge to it. According to newspaper articles, they said that there was an earlier building maybe at this location as early as 1823. I don't know. We do see it show up on the 1851 map. And this was a 1936 newspaper article kind of like reminiscing about the schoolhouse. And it had this really awfully printed photo, but again, with a list of names of everybody who was in the photo, which we always like. But they referred to it as the old Reservoir School, so we think there was multiple ones on that road at different times. Yeah, there's a lot of Goshen names in there, yes.
Where is that located?
It's on Reservoir Road. I was going to say, if you go back, it's kind of, I don't know if that helps, in the 1851 map, but it's kind of smack in the middle of Reservoir Road.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Is that lower reservoir or just plain reservoir?
No, I don't know.
Reservoir Road.
There you go.
It's just a common
Town Road comes
Right.
in.
It's Reservoir Road.
Yeah.
It's very easy to spot.
Yeah, that one's still there. You can spot it. It's very distinct. And it still has the little, I think, scalloped edges on the roof. This one I couldn't find. There was like one mention in one article of it. It was called Goshen Hills School. Not really sure where that was. It was kind of listed as Common School District 6, which is bizarre. It could have been on Comptontown Road. We know that the property was deeded to the school in 1823, but again, there's a little bit of confusion as to where this was as well. So we have some mysteries still to solve. Somerville Schoolhouse is still there. This is Goshen District 6. It's all the way down on Arcadia Road, almost in Chester. And it doesn't show up on the 1851 or 1859 map, but it does show up by the time we get to 1875. There was an article about it in 1939 that says it's at least 100 years old, maybe. We know that the deed dates back to at least 1888, but a lot of times the deeds were set aside for the school and then it took them a while to build it, so we don't know how old the building is itself. First newspaper mention I could find was 1915, and part of its district was actually in Chester and part of it was in Goshen, so when they closed down, they actually divided, and some of the students went here to Goshen and some of them went to Chester, whichever was really closer for them. A former pupil actually bought the school in 1939, and it was the third one to vote to close, so. Yeah. All right, the Goshen Village School. So Farmers Hall Academy, once it gets done being a private school by the mid-1800s, they're using it as a public school here. And it had been large enough, but they did add a second floor to it, and a tower to house the stairway, and all of this stuff. They had to keep expanding it, obviously. And you can see on even the really old maps, it's right where it is today. You can see it show up. So it shows up in both of those places, and then oddly enough, over here, the 1875 map, we see another school showing up farther down Main Street. Not sure what that was all about. It shows up in one map. It's kind of near where the music hall is today, and then it kind of vanishes off of other maps. So I don't know what was there temporarily. What? Yeah. All right. So Goshen Village School becomes Goshen District 8. Like I said, they added 2 rooms to the rear of it. I kind of like when they list how much it costs. They added 2 whole new rooms and it was $2,775. They had 1 principal and 5 teachers, and their total salaries added up to $3,000 a year. All right. And the janitor got $10 a month, and their state aid was $999.42. All right, this is the Goshen Sayre Street School. It never shows up as a number, and in fact, there's hardly any records of it at all. There was one mention in a Goshen history booklet that I found kind of after the fact. And it's the first mention of a segregated school shows up in 1858, and that house unfortunately was just torn down in the last year or so, was it? Right? Yeah. So it doesn't show up on the 1851 map. I was able to track down some of the teachers who went through that, but we don't really have any photos of the students going there. We don't have any photos of the teachers or anything of that. We do know that Horace Pippin went there from 1894 to about 1903. And at age 10, he responded to an art supply company's advertising contest and won his first set of crayons and a box of watercolors. And he did little drawings and stuff. At one point, I think his church auctioned one of them off. And I think there's a story about the lady who bought it, ran it through the washing machine for some weird reason. And it was this is a bum thing I bought. It all came out. She should have held on to it. He became a famous artist. Maybe not run it through the washing machine. So he lived here. His brother lived here. His brother worked at the track. And he would go down there and draw the horses at the track. And he was here until age 15, and then in 8th grade he drops out to support his ailing mother. She got sick, and it's a little unclear whether it's his mom or his older sister that he was living with. But he went right to the St. John's African Union Methodist Protestant Church, and some of his paintings, including his self-portrait, are at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. He's also got stuff at the National Gallery of Art. And he was in World War I, and his notebooks from them, and with all the drawings in them, are actually in the Smithsonian. So probably one of our most famous residents that went through Goshen schools. We know that the Sayre Street School is discontinued before centralization. It ends in 1933. We know that the building was sold to Vera Carroll, and she converted it to a house, and like I said, in the last year or so, it's been torn down. All right. The Erie Street School, otherwise known as the Red Brick School, they vote in 1890 to buy the piece of land. You can see where it is up there at Goshen High School, right on Erie Street. Kind of, there's nothing really there now. It's just like the hill bump and stuff. So they did a $10,000 bond, and it passed 75-0, probably the last time that ever happened. They did. Of course, it wasn't enough. They did need an additional $5,000 to finish construction, and that passed also 10-0, so very good. All right, so in September 1891, the red brick schoolhouse on Erie Street is completed and occupied, with the elementary grades still going to the Noah Webster School just down the street. And there was 11 faculty members, including the principal, who altogether made $5,250 annually. Their state aid was $1,684.19, and $8,667 of that was raised by taxes. So I had 4 large classrooms, 2 on each floor, and it's described in a 1961 article as being a fortress-like structure. It really does look like some sort of castle on the hill, built against a rock outcrop besides a filled-in marsh. I guess that's Erie Park right now. And on the little woods. There's a whole lot of students packed in that building. The 2 chimney-looking structures on each end were actually part of the school's sewage system. I thought that was interesting. It said indoor flush toilets weren't common. The girls' bathroom at one end of the basement and the boys on the other end looked out like, they kind of looked like outdoor privies, but then twice each day, heavily constructed wooden toilet boxes tilted and dumped and flushed. That must have smelled great when they did that into the village sewer and went all the way down those towers, I guess. And then I guess the smokestack kept the fresh air going. Sounds a little sketchy to me. George McGinnis helped dismantle those lavatories sometime after 1940. You know, I guess it was better than an outhouse, maybe.
Mary Gray Griffith went to that school.
Did she? Ah, nice. Yeah, the school was still there right until the 60s, and they tore it down. So 1885 has its first graduation ceremony for 5 students. They would use the music hall next door for the graduation ceremonies, and they continued doing that right until 1911. And here's just some more pictures. It's 1897. It's like they tried to get them into the smallest space possible. Here's some interior shots of what that building looked like. We were just, before counting, there's at least like 30 to 35 kids in each room. A lot. And they're all dressed so nicely. There's another one, like a younger grade level. Interestingly, during World War II, they did reopen the building. It wasn't really being used at that point, but they did reopen the building and used it as, they were doing these first defense courses there, and they were, they were reutilizing the building and having, like there was like car repair type classes going on there, like automotive, like just engineering type things happening there. So. Here's some pictures from that happening. So you can see the arch, the signature arched windows in the back here. But at this point, they've got guys putting together cars and trying to prep them for like war effort repair type stuff, I guess. I was told some of the hammers that made their way into my room are actually from the Red Brick Schoolhouse, from those programs and stuff. 61. Yep, and they tore it down in 1961.
Mildred Percy's.
Yep. So there's a couple more pictures of it. You can see the big play yard and stuff. It really was kind of this fortress structure. I love the playground equipment. They don't make stuff like that anymore. It's probably a good thing. It looks like you could be burning witches in there. All right, the LaGrange School is also known as the Goosetown School. That was Hamptonburg District 6. So when I was researching this, it gets a little confusing because there's all the Goshen districts, but then Goshen also encompasses part of Hamptonburg, Wayanda, and Walk Hill today. So those are all one-room schoolhouses that got absorbed into our district. So although this one is Hamptonburg, it's also part of Goshen School District. So we don't know when it was built. It doesn't show up in 1851 or in 1859, but it does show up in the middle of LaGrange Road in 1875. It's believed to be named Goosetown School for the number of farmers raising geese in that area, because I always wondered why it was called that. But we do know that Amy Bull Chris taught there in 1924 for a year. Yeah. This looks like an older picture where it's obviously a little bit more run down.
It's moved to Hill.
Yes, and now it's moved to Hill. So yeah, thankfully it was preserved. I don't, it seems to have been there until at least 1980. I don't know at what point it was moved, but it is. Does anybody know when it got moved? No? But it's over at Hillhold today, so I've gotten to like go inside of it as a kid and stuff like that. All right, and then Campbell Hall had its own school, Hamptonburg District 4. And it also seems to migrate around on the map depending on which year you're looking at. This is the 1851 map, and this shows a school structure pretty much right where the general store is today. There's no like other mentions of that school or if that had a different name or what the deal was, but later it seems to migrate down to closer to the Otter Hill, like right on the Otter Hill. So by 1875, it shows up right there. What?
That's where my mom went to school for part of her schooling. Yeah.
Excellent. I figured. Yeah, and then this is a little clearer. This is the 1980 publication, and it shows, well, the 1980 publication describes the school as being above the Otter Hill, adjacent to the homes of Hall sisters and Boyce family. And this is the 1903 map, and you can see a little L-shaped structure right by the river there, and you can indeed see the Halls and the Boyce. So, but yeah, the one farther up the road kind of intrigues me. I don't know what that was all about. Because I kind of felt like the general store was there forever. But yet,
I never heard of it.
is the store, was it converted, like maybe that building was converted to a store? I don't know. Here's pictures of the one down by the river. It was originally one room, but it had a second room added around 1912. Each of the two teachers then taught 4 grades each, right? Most of these schools went to 8th grade, and then like the older students, if they wanted to, would have to transport into Goshen. And the bell from this school is reportedly in the firehouse. Is that true?
There's a big controversy about that.
Oh. What's that?
So I really can't say for sure if that's where it is. That's where it's
Is there a bell in there?
supposed to be.
Like, is it like a hanging bell or is that handbell? Or we
I think it was like up in
like
the
the
cupola.
steeple bell? Yeah. Big bell. The school closes around 1916. These are just some other articles I found about it. The old oak, you can actually, I think that they're talking about that big oak tree right there, being taken down. And the Campbell Hall School was sold in about 1932 and torn down. This was the Campbell Hall School built in 1927. This has 2 large classrooms with cloakrooms and a modern facilities on the 2nd floor. And the basement had a big rec room. And it's where we used to sign up for, like, was it swim lessons and stuff down in there?
Yeah. It was the town hall for a while. And it's where I went to kindergarten. In a one-room school,
okay.
one-room classroom. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, because this was the longest of the schools that kind of existed as far as, what was it, 1952, I think it shuts down.
Yes.
Yes. So all of the other smaller one-room schoolhouses pretty much get annexed in 1937, and Campbell Hall keeps going until 1952. Yeah. There we go. All right, Mount Joy, right? So going over to the other side to Walk Hill, Mount Joy Schoolhouse is still there. It's a residence today. It was reportedly built in 1866 and may have been replaced by whatever, because something is there in 1851 on the maps, but according to some records, this one doesn't exist until 1866. So maybe there was an older wood structure or something there first. Right? It looks like that house today. I think this picture was taken in the 80s, but I feel like it still looks the same. Or is it painted gray now? Is it gray? There's a nice booklet, I think, up here in the history room from Mount Joy School, where sometime in the 1930s when it was getting ready to close down or whatever, somebody made like a nice little booklet of it and some of its students. Click through those. They look much happier than the other districts. Somebody compiled a cute tribute to the school. Some pictures of what the inside would have looked like with the desks.
Northrop still live on that road, or they used to.
It says that's the entire student body of Mount Joy School in 1936. There's always got to be one class clown out there. Okay, and yeah, it shows up, as being sort of a hub of different things in the 1800s. 1940, it votes to send all its pupils to Goshen, and yeah, they sold it, and it became a residence. And that's a picture, I think this looks like one of the last days that the school was open, 1940. It's a nice picture of the teacher sitting there in an empty classroom. This is McGowan. McGowan?
She went on to teach at Goshen.
Did she?
Yeah, Catherine McGowan.
So most of the teachers, I did find an article, 1937, 1940 or something along those lines, when they consolidated. C.J. Hooker, who was then the sort of the superintendent principal of the district, did hire most of the one-room schoolhouse teachers who come teach in Goshen, so they were repurposed too. This is a Crystal Run Schoolhouse. This is Walk Hill District number 7. We don't know when it was built, but it does show up on the 1851 map, although it's across the street from where it is. And again, I don't know, sometimes the 1851 map will do that, will flip things around a little bit, so I don't know if that's just an error or if there actually was. The other side of the street is really swampy, so I doubt it was there. Every other map shows it on this side of the street, the Goshen side of the street. It's still there today. It's a house. One of my students actually lives there. She assured me she was going to give me pictures of the inside because the chalkboards are still hanging on to the walls. And she did not send them to me in time for the presentation. I know. I wasn't there to remind her yesterday. So they would host card parties. I found this little ditty in 1932 about a lost Tiffany 8-stone diamond platinum circle brooch that got lost somewhere near the Crystal Run Schoolhouse. So I told Tavia I'm coming over there to go metal detecting because we absolutely need to go find that. And there was no further articles about it being found after it was posted that it was lost, just that there was a reward. Yeah, they would have Halloween parties. Holidays were a big thing in all of the one-room schoolhouses. The Denton Schoolhouse in Wayweyanda, that's District 7, it shows up across from the Presbyterian Church up there on Denton Hill, yeah, pretty much right there. And this got a little hairy when I was trying to research the New Hampton schools because it's like they kept using the terms like Denton and New Hampton interchangeably, and I kind of figured it out, I kind of sorted it out. So in 1851, the Denton school shows up already, and then later, we do see a separate New Hampton school show up. So even though they're less than a mile apart, there were two different schools there. The Denton one actually burned down in 1925 during the blizzard, while the students were in it. The fire started on the lower floor while classes were in session, and there was a newspaper article that even said, like, who discovered the fire? I mean, it was a one-room schoolhouse, it would have been right there, but it sounds like they probably had the stoves stoked because of the blizzard outside, and something flipped out of the potbelly stove and started the building on fire. The main staircase quickly filled with smoke, so there was a whole upper level to that. They went to go down the main staircase, they couldn't get down the main staircase, and thankfully they had, like the year before, just built an outdoor staircase, and so all the students had to go back around and down the snowy stairs on the other side to get out, but everybody got out safely. Yeah, you can see it, the Presbyterian church there, and then the school being shown right across the street. After 1925, when it burned down, it seems as if they were renting out rooms in people's houses for at least a few years until they built a new school. And there's a picture of the Denton schoolhouse from 1918. It seemed like they always had a lot of students, both in Denton and New Hampton. They were always kind of having like overcrowding issues. You know, this one talks about 36 pupils being in one room with one teacher trying to take charge of all of them in 1894. What did that one say? Yeah, I like this 1893 article too, where it says, she's been really good, this new teacher, Mrs. Tidal. She gained complete control of the school, which we must say is quite a rare thing for one to do in the Denton school. And at first I took that as like, are they just extra unruly in Denton? But then I saw this article this year later talking about 36 pupils, and I think that's more what they were talking, maybe what they were talking about. It might have just been that there were so many students. The New Hampton schoolhouse was over about where Dan Ogden's garage is today, off that little triangle on McVeigh. It does not show up on the 1851 map, but it does show up by 1859. And they often list it as a red brick schoolhouse over there. It's supposed to be one room. And it's possible that both schools, the Denton and New Hampton ones, did exist in 1805, because there's records of them being listed as District 1 and 2. That's even before New York State made the districts, so some arbitrary numbering happening there. So we're not really sure, but they might have both been there by 1805. There was a nice little write-up in the Way Beyond a history book about Elizabeth Hohen, a teacher there, and she recalled using a handbell. They didn't have like a bell on top of the school, so she had to use a handbell like this to call the pupils. All the blackboards were slate, of course, and they were kind of fancy at New Hampton in that they had an organ that you could pump by foot. And there was a cute little story about this guy, Jack Hoonan, who was the son of the local mailman. During recess at noon, he would draw on the boards, and then, you know, the teacher would come in and have to like use those boards to teach, and the kids were always begging his drawings to be left up. They were so good. So then, like, it gets even more confusing. This is the Denton / New Hampton schoolhouse. So they do combine at some point in 1928. Yep, it's still there. It's across from where Soons has its like you know, the apple picking fields and stuff. Yeah, so it was 2 rooms, one on each side. It still is the same. The front still looks exactly the same today. So this opens in 28. So there was about a 3-year gap where Denton didn't have a school, and they were just renting different, I guess, residences to kind of use as their school, but then they combined it here. And it seems like they almost immediately had also overcrowding issues going on there, but it did close down in 1941. There's a picture of a bunch of the students right out in front of it. Another way beyond the one that became part of Goshen School District. Yep, you guys know this building. We don't know when it was built. It doesn't show up on the 1851 map, but this is the Pellets Island School, which later, of course, goes on to be, was it St. Andrew, Gobula? But I'm looking at you.
I'm not gonna say because I'm gonna probably miss.
I'm gonna mess up the pronunciation.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any other pictures of students at that one, or there wasn't really any newspaper articles about it. It was kind of a little bit of a mystery itself. This school shows up, and I don't know where this one was. This isn't Pellets Island. This is another school. It's roughly back across the street from like Burke or something. It just says school. I couldn't find anything else about it, what it was called, what number it was supposed to be. And it shows up on this one map in 1875. And there's nothing there today other than the maps and stuff. Okay. This just describes a typical day in a rural school, and this was in the Hamptonburg history booklet. And I guess all of these teachers like kind of compiled their recollections, and they said that most times their day would start at 9 a.m. with the ringing of the bell. The kids had both single and double desks. There was never any unnecessary talking, imagine. But they did write notes to each other, so that hasn't changed. They started each day with a Bible reading and reciting the Lord's Prayer, followed by a salute to the flag. And roll call was taken, assignments were given, and class recitations, but how do we say that? Yeah, that began. And discipline was rarely a problem. Can't imagine that either. Most schools were heated by a wood or coal stove. And you saw a lot of the pictures, there was like usually like a little potbelly stove somewhere, kind of in the center of the room usually. And the teacher was the custodian generally in the one-room schoolhouses. They had to arrive early to do all the chores. And I didn't really think about this, but most schools did not have a well. So water would have been brought up from like the creek or whatever, or somebody else's well, and then stored in either a crock or a pail with a ladle. And everyone walked, can you imagine, like everybody today is so well hydrated with their flasks of water that they have with them at school all the time now. Like, imagine being like that one pail is for everybody. Everybody walked to or from school in all weather, and holidays were celebrated by having plays and parties. All right, St. John's School was founded in 1860. I don't know much about like what building they originally used, because it's definitely not the building they're using today. That's much newer.
It was the convent.
The one next
Is it the one to the left?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. That was my suspicion, but I didn't want to say that.
and then Gar Hall.
Okay.
Gar Hall was after this.
Gar Hall is, what, is it in the picture or no?
No,
That's not here.
it's
That's not here.
It's on the area.
So, St. John's is the oldest Catholic elementary school in Orange County. The Main Street School, in March 7th, 1910, voters approved the building of a Main Street School. They've really run out of space in the red brick school, and they need to expand. And in 1911, the yellow brick Main Street School, where you guys all vote, is completed as a high school.
Bill Altman built this school, and I live in the house that he built for he and his wife on Murray Avenue, and it's two houses, the second house down from Gar Hall, and that, if you keep going, the house, there's a lot next to me, and then a yellow brick house, which is leftover brick from this
Okay.
school.
Oh, nice. 1919, an agricultural class is added to the high school, and that's the entire student body in 1912. This is the class of 1914. Some of these photos are from upstairs in the history room.
The Mila Street.
There's like a big unnamed mass of students there in 1921. Yeah, these are all from the history room up here. 1922, looks like the graduating class. Do you recognize them, boy? No? 1924, Charles J. Hooker starts as the high school principal at Main Street there. We still have some of, the C.J. Hooker attic is full of stuff, and papers and stuff. And we have a lot of his original, we can find like his original contracts and stuff are still up there. And so are a lot of the teaching contracts from the 1920s and before. But he always signed the teaching contracts too, right? He had to have a signature on it. 1927, this is the class of 7-year-olds. Some are happier than others. Then 1931, the formation of Goshen Central School District is considered at a public meeting, and there's so much opposition that they pretty much immediately drop it. But it comes back up in 1937, and this time it was approved 547 to 147. And like within the next few years, all 13 districts that eventually make up Goshen basically all consolidate into one. I thought this was an interesting picture. This is the C.J. Hooker building, which originally was supposed to have 3 different cupolas instead of just one in the center. And you notice the columns in the center that don't exist today. And as per usual, Goshen was like, that's too much. Let's scale it back, make it smaller, simplify it, and then we'll improve it. Right? So we lost 2 cupolas and a set of columns from the middle, but everything else kind of stayed.
Is that what the opposition was mainly about?
Oh, I don't know. Probably the cost, just in general. They were like, this is too grandiose.
They put flat roofs.
No, it does have peaked roof because, well, it does.
Not
It
on
has
the-
flat
not on the
roofs.
wings.
Yes, not on the wings. You're right. Yeah, because the attic is in. That's where all the records are stored. It's in that, like under the cupola. There's rooms and rooms of stuff up in there. But yeah, you're right. It's flat on the other side. That was the Board of Education in 1937, and a little bit about the floor plan. They have Robert R. Graham is the architect, and he also built several other schools in Orange County. Anybody know which one? Yes, Elena?
Twin Towers in Middletown.
Yes, Twin Towers in Middletown, same architect, and I think there's at least one more. Anybody know? It looks a little similar to the middle school.
I think one in Newburgh.
Is there one in Newark?
I don't know.
I think
I
it's
remember spending a lot of time looking at that guy.
I think Tuxedo's School. Yeah, Tuxedo School is the same architect too. Okay. And building construction begins, and the original building cost was only $778,000. And because it went up partially during World War II there, 45% of that was paid by the Federal Emergency Administration of Public Works. So that explains why it's a little bit like it's got more, like it's got marble floors and it's a little fancier. It's a beautiful building. It's held up very well over time and still solid as a rock. And C.J. Hooker lived up on Wickham? I don't know. He lived right up on the hill. The hill's next to
Wisner Terrace.
Yes, Wisner Terrace. And he would, while they were constructing it, he would come down and just keep an eye on everything, like check on them every day. He was like there all the time. And you know, and then he worked there into the 60s and stuff. And even today, like when you look at that hill and it snows just right, there's an indent that leads right to his house just where he walked every day back and forth.
That would have been about, that's during the Depression, but before World War II. World War II for us is 41.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So this is part of the
Yeah, you're right.
WPA where they dump the money, the federal
Yes.
government put money into the states to help them recover.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And it's come on, move it. That's all I got. You guys have any comments or questions? Somebody's unhappy.
You know,
Yes.
Yeah, how were these 9 or 10 little one-room schoolhouses, how were they financed? Who paid to have them built? And who paid for the budget?
That's a good question. In most cases, it seemed like private landowners deeded the land to that hamlet or the town. I'm not really sure. Like the deed books just look like they deeded the land over, and in some cases it said like if it's not being used for a school, it comes back to like the original property owners. I don't really know. I guess town taxes, I don't know. Yeah.
If you had a family with 8 kids and the nearest school was a long, long walk,
Yeah.
family would then say, okay, we'll give you this corner if you build a school. So
Nearby.
So that's why there were so many schools that
Yeah.
walked to them.
Maybe the families in Denton and New Hampton just didn't get along with each other and they had to make their own. Yeah.
As they were consolidating, did you run across any information about when busing started? When, obviously it started.
Yeah, I didn't put it in here, but I did find an article like proclaiming that busing was starting, and I don't remember off the top of my head what year that was, but yeah.
1939, Phyllis, who taught here with me, we once did a celebrating the, I don't know, 50th anniversary of school buses, that it was 1939.
1939, okay. Yeah, it was right around the same time as centralization, I just couldn't remember. Yeah.
You know, also, when I was at the middle school, I was looking through a lot of those old photographs that were taken during the construction. They also had a photograph of the first graduating class in the Hooker building. I was astonished. The kids were standing like this.
Yep.
I'm thinking, whoa, is this Berlin?
we
But
had that
apparently,
picture.
sometime after 1939,
Yeah.
it changed to the hand over the heart. But that was like shocking to see.
Yeah, I have that picture. I kind of stopped with the middle school, but I have a lot of photographs like past the middle school, but I already had 95 slides in here, so I was like, oh my god. But yes, I know what picture you're talking about. It has CJ standing on the page.
That was
stage.
part of the salute to the flag. When I was in kindergarten,
Yes.
before it was changed, we would stand out in front of the school where the flagpole was. We would point to the
Yep.
flag and say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. And then when Hitler came along, they decided, we better not do that.
Right.
I can remember-
Yeah, I had to ask a few people because when I saw that photo too, I was like, what is happening here?
I know.
And
Is this
then,
Berlin?
yes, but they said that's how they used to salute the flag. So, yes,
Question, with the CJ Hooker building,
yes.
where the shops are, somebody mentioned about Devil's Cave.
Devil's Cave, what's that?
It's behind the shops.
Not really a cave.
So supposedly, when the football coach and other guys practice, they think they'll go up the hill to Devil's Cave.
It's a rock.
There's an actual, oh,
Hill. It's
Guess I
not
haven't
really a
been back
cave.
there.
We all called it Devil's Cave.
really?
When you grew
On
up
what
playing
side of the
up
book?
there. Behind the shop, looking straight up the hill.
Behind the end.
Where they put the new house?
So
There's like a,
There's a house
Yeah,
near
near
there
there.
now, but it was all.
so there's a house on Devil's Cave?
Well, Devil's Cave was up.
Oh, was it up high?
It's a rock, it's all shale and whatever up there.
Yeah, the middle school property is interesting in that it was part of that, it was the part of that Orange Blossoms camp when they were, like that camp went all the way up the hill. And the kids at one point found like a
So
rusted out gun in the
there is
woods.
no
and they were-
cave?
No.
Launching
It's just shale
rockets.
outcroppings, we used to call it Devil's Cave, how that ever started.
There was a bit of an overhang.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a little,
Oh,
yeah.
A little kid,
Yeah.
fit
The thing was
inside.
kind of like a
Yeah.
cave.
The various things happened.
When when we did around 2000, the addition to Hooker, there was a lot of discussion about making that addition not interfere with the front of the school. In other
Yes.
words, to keep that as it was built back in the 30s.
And they did.
In fact, one of the things I remember is, in order to do that, if you go through the front door, in order to get to the library behind there, they had to remove a load-bearing wall that was right in the way because of the way it was designed. In order to just keep the front exactly the way it was I remember it being a very complicated little
Yeah.
challenge.
They had to dynamite quite a bit of shale out of that hill to be able to get far enough back to add that on there. Yeah, my room was right in the back there, the art room in the center.
dynamite a lot to do other schools, too. Intermediate school is the same way.
Yeah, there's all rock right there, so the water runs right down that hill.
They blow a whistle when they were
And it
blast.
freezes right there, right behind my room into this like block of ice. And yeah,
When they
for
were
maintenance.
building that house, they dynamited every day. They told
Oh,
us what
yeah.
time they were gonna do it so we could warn the kids.
Yeah, you
That
could-
was like
You
2021.
could feel the
Yeah.
shutters in the building, yeah. But yeah, I mean, when we've had like various little earthquakes and stuff, when we've felt it, and, you know, I've been at the high school and things are falling off the ceiling and stuff. The middle school never moves. It's like a solid.
No, we actually didn't even feel it.
No.
And we all thought it was like, because anytime they moved stuff in the attic, you know, you could hear like.
Yeah, that you could feel.
Like something getting rolled back and forth, and the kids are like, what's that sound? I'm like, oh, they're probably just up in the attic, and it actually was a earthquake. They teased me about that.
Yeah.
An interesting thing that shows up in the pictures is the earliest pictures of the high school classes had twice as many girls as boys. And then by the, I don't know when it was, by the early 30s, it evens out. That by then, I guess they were, I'm assuming the boys in the earlier pictures quit school and went to work
Yeah.
before high school, and then by the 30s, they were going to high school.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you had mentioned earlier that there was a class, there were 35 kids in it.
Yeah.
That was kind of like huge.
So hard.
Just as a comment, both my wife and myself went to Catholic schools in the city, Long Island,
Yeah.
in the 50s through the 60s. I have a picture of my younger brother. He had 72 kids in the class. And there was never any discipline. One nun. 72 kids. My wife has some horror stories about
But these
what
teachers were
discipline.
teaching
I'm sure.
You're too bad.
72 is nothing for a nun.
Right. True. Right, you were paying to be there, so you could get kicked out. What's up, Art? What were you gonna say?
No, I just said 36 kids, not unusual
Giving me anxiety.
in some circumstances, I should say.
Anytime I get like 28 or above, it starts to get hard, at least for an art teacher trying to, well, for anybody, but yeah. Yeah.
The only other thing I noticed from the pictures is it was interesting to watch the movement from the segregated to the sort of casually unsegregated
Yeah.
schools sometime in the early 30s.
You know, some of the one-room schoolhouses were never segregated. That seemed to be something specific to the village, because if you looked in some of those photos from the late 1800s, they were not segregated. But it seemed to be in the village of Goshen, it was a segregated school. I don't know if that was just because of the population, you know.
Probably there was enough.
There was enough to, yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
Are you going to do a continuation?
Of like 1937 now, I don't know, maybe. I could. Yes.
I saw some records of schools over in the Washington area, one-room schools, and the registration would show that there's like 35, 40, 45 kids signed up, but it was highly dependent on weather.
Yeah.
There were many days when there were only 12 or 13 or 14 kids in school that day.
Right.
Because it rained, it was cold, or snow, so it fluctuated greatly.
Yeah, it depended too. I mean, a lot of these were agricultural, rural schools, so if it was a good day for planting, they were not at school, you know, so.
So does that mean that schools were not canceled during snow?
It doesn't seem like it. And if you watch Little House on the Prairie like I do, and the kids almost get stuck in a blizzard trying to walk home, like, you know. So, yes.
My dad grew up in Iowa, and there were one-room schools, and he said when he was very small, they didn't have school buses. They had a farm wagon with benches, and it would go around and pick up the kids to take them to the one-room school. Wow. Drawn by horses.
Now that sounds like better than what most of these were. It sounded like almost everybody was walking. I mean, obviously your dad or mom were welcome to drive you to school if you wanted, but it seemed like most of them walked because they were within a mile or two.